Hi, I'm Johnny and you're watching the Hexy Beast. And I'm back after getting a haircut and after a short holiday break to bring you my top 10 solo games 2022 edition. Anyway, let's just get on with the list, shall we? Okay, so before we start, I just want to wish everyone a happy new year and hope they enjoyed their holiday period. Also, I just want to clarify some of the rules of the list. So in order for this list to take place, the game has to have been played in the last year by me and enjoyed by me. It also has to be in my personal collection, so anything I've had as a preview copy or anything like that doesn't really count. It doesn't just have to include games from 2022. Also doesn't just have to include games that I've played since 2022. So kind of sort of like think of this as my top 10 solo games of all time, 2022 edition. And then with that, let's just get on with our honourable mentions. Okay, so the first thing in the honourable mentions list is it's going to be Marvel Champions as a whole, but the only box I've got down is for one of the expansions, the one I'm playing through at the minute, the Galaxy's Most Wanted. I just want to say that although it is a great LCG and a brilliant card game, there is a reason why it's no longer in the top 10 and it's been kicked off, and I will explain that as we get through the list. Moving on to the next honourable mention, I'm actually going to bring in Star Wars Outer Rim because of its new expansion. When that new expansion attached to it, it became a game that just came out a lot more this year, and I was actually quite surprised at how much playtime this game actually got. So yeah, I really enjoyed Outer Rim once I added some more encounter cards, and I just have to say it was a much enjoyable game. Next on the honourable mentions list, I think I'm going to have to include Lost Ruins of Arnak, because I thought this would, I like it enough, and I do play it enough, that it probably would have appeared on the list. But by the time I'd actually compiled the list, it kind of just got kicked off the back of it. So in that case, I just sort of have to say, although I think this is one of my favourite games of all time, it just didn't quite make the cut for this particular list. So that's the honourable mentions out the way. Now let's get on to our first game of the list with number 10. Okay, so that's kicking us off at number 10, and the first game on this list is going to be Solar Sphere from Dranda Games. They're the same people who brought you Solar Storm a few years back, and this is a really nice production. I actually backed this one on Kickstarter, so it delivered recently, and I've played a few games of it. It's kind of like a dice placement space game with like resource management involved and a little bit of combat. It's really enjoyable. I really enjoyed it, and that's why it's kicked out Arnak, because I've been going through it and just liking it that much that I felt it needed to be included on this year's top 10 list. So at number 10, that's Solar Sphere from Dranda Games. Okay, and that brings us on to our number 9 on the list, and this is the exact reason why Marvel Champions wasn't included. And the game I've decided to put into number 9 is the reprinting of Sentinels of the Multiverse, because for one, I've really enjoyed it, and although I do like deck building in Marvel Champions, I found the fact that I can just pull decks out of a box and get this shuffled up to get playing such an appealing factor about the game. It ends up hitting the tables so often simply because the setup is almost non-existent at this point. You can pretty much just, I want to play this and I want to play this, chuck it on the table and just get going. And it's just a really interesting card game, and they've sorted out some of the accessibility issues from the original printing by highlighting certain points of the turns in certain colours, making the keywords bold on the cards, and just taking every effort to try and remind you what's going on. So for those reasons, I say that this reprinting of the Sentinels of the Multiverse card game has to be number 9 on this list of best solo games of 2022. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so that brings us on to number 8, which is actually the first game that appeared on last year's list, and it's down 3 places. It's going to be the first big box game on the list as well, and it is Descent Legends of the Dark. And this is just a fun little app-based sort of adventure game, similar to games like I'm just going to put this somewhere so it doesn't like destroy my view. Similar to games like Mansions of Madness or Journeys in Middle-earth, but it's kind of set on a grid. It kind of uses some interesting flipping of card mechanics, and overall I really enjoyed the video game style of its narrative. It kept me coming back for more. I finished it once and I'm going through another playthrough now, and I'm still playing it. It's just really enjoyable system, and I've been really enjoying it. So for that reason, that's why this, although it's down 3 places, is actually number 8 on this year's list. So anyway, let's move on to number 7. Okay, so that brings us on to number 7, and that is another adventure game from Fantasy Flight, and that is Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. Yes, still on my list. It's down 1 place from last time, but I still get it played a lot, and it's still got a lot of playtime in 2022. In fact, I've sold my copy of Eldritch Horror because it didn't get any playtime. I was just playing this instead, so there was no point. So yeah, that is an amazing game from Fantasy Flight. I really enjoyed it. It's quite long sometimes, but I really enjoy the way that it uses the codex system that they use in the Fallout game to great effect to tell its narrative. It was just generally a lot of fun to play, and every time I tried a new scenario I was always surprised by the outcome, and even on repeat playthroughs things were different, so I was quite impressed with it. But yeah, that is Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, and that is number 7 on my top 10 solo games of 2022. Now let's see what's on number 6. Okay, so now we're on to number 6, and it's another new entry for the list, and a game that was released in 2022 and one that I first discovered at GridCon, and I kind of fell in love with it, and I kind of had to buy my own copy as soon as I could. Incidentally, this is Heat Pedal to the Metal from Days of Wonder, and it's a racing game with a sort of deck building card mechanic where, well, it's more hand management, where you're basically spending heat to push your car to the edge. Basically, it has a really nice aesthetic. It comes with a couple of double-sided boards with lots of tracks. I've really been enjoying it. There's a reason it's number 6 on this list, and there will be a review of this coming soon. I just want to say that whoever conceived this, these designers, they're really onto something great here. The way it just adds modules is just a great way to expand the game. I also think because it can pull back to its base sort of mechanisms, it's a great game to introduce to people who don't play a lot of board games. It's just easy to understand. Everyone knows what a race is. Get around the track as fast as you can. And because of its interesting heat management system, I've really enjoyed Heat, so that's why it's got number 6 on this year's top 10 games of 2022. So anyway, let's move on to number 5. Okay, so we're halfway through the list. What do you think is going to appear at number 5? Well, I just want to say that I have played it a few times and I've been really enjoying it, and it always seems to take a lot of space. And everyone's been raving about it this year, but yeah, Ark Nova. I've been really enjoying this game. It's kind of similar to Terraforming Mars. It's like an engine building card game, but it also has a polyomino enclosure building element to it, which is also very nice. I think it also has a really nice table presence. There's a lot of reused like license-free art or whatever used in it, and some weird AI effects to give it some filters and stuff in some of the cards art. But apart from that, yeah, it's just a very good Euro engine building card game, and I just have to say that Ark Nova has been something I've really enjoyed in these last couple of months, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it. I feel I have to play a lot more of it before I'm able to review it, but yeah, this is definitely appearing halfway down the list, is exactly where I'd put it right now, and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, let's move on to number 4. Okay, so this next one at number 4 may be a bit of a surprise to you. In fact, it was a surprise to me when I actually came to rating my games using my patented Hexy Beast score rating system, or whatever it is. There's no math in it, it's just sort of a gut feeling about games. I ended up knocking this game down a couple of spaces compared to last year's list. And I knocked it down 3 spaces, and that game at number 4 is Too Many Bones. And the reason I knocked it down was actually because of this. As I started introducing this to the game, I started finding the system becoming bloated, and I thought if I expanded it any further, I'm just going to get this out as well because it does have the actual logo on it by here. But yeah, although it's been my favourite games a couple of years running, it just got knocked down a few pegs because of the stuff above it, really. And unlike this game, I didn't feel the game started getting bloated by the time I'd added a few expansions. Splice of Dice does really up the complexity. and it also adds a lot of new systems. It is fun to explore, and I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but I find I do not generally include a lot of the content in this when I'm playing Too Many Bones. I tend to just include Undertow content, my gear locks, and the base game. So for that reason, I actually knocked Too Many Bones as a whole down 3 spaces to number 4 on this year's list. So anyway, let's get on to number 3. That brings us on to the top 3. So what do you think they're going to be? And I'm going to stop talking like that now. So yeah, that brings us on to number 3 on the list, and that is, it's kind of a non-mover. In fact, I think it's time I got the Ultimate Edition. That is Mage Knight, which is kind of like an overland adventure game with a deck building card mechanic where the cards are dual use, and it's a lot of complicated things like taking over keeps and dungeons and taking out orcs on the map and then managing your fame and basically just lots of really fun overland adventure. It takes a long time to play, one of the greatest solo games of all time. And I think I've definitely played it enough by this point, especially it appearing on 3 lists in a row, to finally get the Ultimate Edition. So at some point this box is going to get replaced with a big square one, so I don't know how I'm going to feel about getting that on my shelf, but yeah, I think it's about time I added some expansions, because unlike Too Many Bones, I don't feel that this is going to get bloated up. So at number 3, that's Mage Knight, one of the best games of all time, and I know someone who agrees with me very much. So yeah. Okay, so that brings us down to number 2 on this list, and I'm pretty excited about this one because even after all these years I'm still playing it, and even digitally I'm still playing it, and that is the one, the only, Spirit Island, which is actually in the same place as it was the last list. I'm still playing it just as much, and with the new content that's come out, I'm just playing it loads and loads. It's basically like a threat management game. You're trying to stop some invaders, and you're using the cards in your hand and the land itself. So like there are certain effects that'll only work at certain ranges and on certain conditions will have extra bonuses to them and stuff. And the idea is basically you're trying to drive away colonizers from an island that you as a spirit are charged with being its protector. And I just say it's nice and complex, but it's not too complex. I think you can teach people this game quite quickly generally, but if you want it to not take all night, you kind of need like people who really know the game well, can actually really win it. It's very challenging, especially solo. It's one of those games, like I said, it gets played all the time, even at 4 o'clock in the morning using the digital version. So yeah, Spirit Island from Greater Than Games is number 2 on my top 10 solo games 2022 edition, and it rightly deserves its spot. So what do you reckon is going to be at number 1 then? Okay, so that brings us on to the final game on this list, and the one that's in the number 1 spot. And I just want to say, for the last couple of days I've been umming and ahhing and been indecisive about whether I should include it on this list because it arrived so late in the year. In fact, it only arrived a few days ago, but I have managed to squeeze 5 plays out of it by then, since then shall I say, and that is truly a testament to it, which is why I thought it couldn't go anywhere else but number 1 on the list. And I've decided as my number 1 game of 2022, it's going to be Frostpunk the board game. And this is basically a city management game where you're trying to sort of like stop the winter coming. It's like an alternate steampunk universe where the world is kind of like snowed over, and you're like a last bastion of humanity trying to build a city to make things basically get back to normal. You're trying to restart humanity basically, and it has a lot of like really good mechanisms in it that are all really tightly designed. It's not just about the cube tower in the middle really, there's so much more to it. Every single aspect of the game has been really well thought out, and it's very rare that I find a game that lasts this long, that as soon as I lose, like 3 or 4 hours into it, I'm happy to just start again and try and win this time. I very rarely, in fact this is the only game all year that's kind of given me that. Other games, if I've spent a long time playing them, like say I've been 7 o'clock and then I finish the game at like 11 in the evening, it's unlikely that I'm going to end up sat there till 2 AM playing a second game of it. But in the case of Frostpunk, that's pretty much what I've been doing. It looks great on the table, there's a really high production value in it. This isn't a review, but I'm definitely going to be reviewing this at some point. I know there's so much more for me to discover with it. I'm going to be adding the minis to it. I've been deliberately playing it just with this box, so I haven't had to unwrap anything. So I can get some gameplays in to see what I really think of the gameplay and if it really did deserve to be on this list. And I have to say that 11-Bit Studios, Adam Kropinski, Glass Cannon Unplugged, everyone involved in this game did a really great job, and that's why Frostpunk the board game is my #1 solo game of 2022, and it really does deserve that spot. Okay, so now we've got to the end of the list. It's just something I want to say to everyone who stuck around with me for the last year, because I know I've been a bit limited on content. I know it's been difficult, and there's been a few things going on privately that have sort of just pulled me away a bit from actually getting content out on time. But I think it's time for me. I've kind of moved on from that, and I just want to say it's been great having you guys there to help me out over the last couple of years. Just having you guys just still watching, even though I'm not putting out nowhere near enough content, has been really important to me, and it's really helped me through what has been quite a tough year for me. And I just want to say Happy New Year, and moving onwards and upwards, I'm going to be bringing more videos next year. I finally figured out how to use my equipment. I finally got my gaming schedule in order and my studio space, which will be upgrading soon. I just want to say that thank you for sticking around, and if you've been enjoying the content, please feel free to smash our subscribe button up there and check out another one of my videos by here. Anyway, I'm Johnny, you've been watching the Hexy Beast. Thank you for watching, Happy New Year, and stay Hexy everyone.